Hi everyone! Welcome back to my itsy bitsy corner of the web. Today's video is going to be all about books because I love books and I have too many stacks of books. One thing about me is that the bigger that my to be read book list gets, the smaller that my actually read recently book list gets, which I have no words. Honestly, I have no words. Bunny is reading today. So I'm first going to start off by talking about some books that I've recently read. Now this July, this summer in general, I was planning to read a lot more and work on more art projects, but obviously that didn't happen for some reason, which is okay. First I'll go through the graphic novels. So I've actually read some manga too as well this month, which I read online because I didn't feel like waiting to buy it or get it from the library. So this manga is called A Sign of Affection. Very gorgeous art. It's like kind of that classic shoujo art style, but it's like a college student, which is nice. It's really cute. On to the graphic novels. First I have Fibbed, and I just think it was a really cute, fun read. I love kind of like middle grade graphic novels. They're just really fun to read. They have good stories. The art style is really unique. I don't always see that in graphic novels, and I just love that. But if you guys can almost see on the cover the way it has that sketchy style on the trees, I just thought it has an overall really magical and whimsical look. So I really enjoyed this as a quick read in between some other things I've been reading. The next is Evil Thing. So this is actually an ARC for my library, and I had been eyeing it for a while, and I decided to pick it up the last time I was at one of my meetings there. But basically it's about Cruella. So I actually really love the new Cruella movie. The art direction, everything was just really interesting and fun. I liked how her character was written out. I really liked basically how she was portrayed. I liked the whole fashion elements. All of this was pretty cool to me. So I was kind of expecting that vibe for this book, but it was kind of different. So instead of that more modern setting, it was like this classical, interesting setting. And I don't think it was a bad book. I just think that I wasn't fully feeling it. Maybe if I reread it, I would get it more. I did kind of like read it pretty fast since it's like a thin graphic novel, but it almost just feels like, unlike the new Cruella, it's kind of, I don't know, it just didn't really click with me, but I still think that the art was gorgeous. And one thing I really love when graphic novels or comics have black, white, and one standout color. I love full color graphic novels, but it is really cool when they aren't just black and white, they aren't just full color, but they have like, you can tell it's red because that's Cruella, part of Cruella's color. So the book is very pleasing and it's cool to have on my shelf with this really cool art. But here are some of my recently read novels: Legendborn and Charming as a Verb, which I'm going to go into both. And I really love these covers a lot. I have two books that are completely different, but both very good. So we have Charming as a Verb. And what I noticed about both of these books, I had a unique experience. So what I've noticed as I've gotten back into reading is that I feel like I'm very critical. There's two sides of me. One side that absolutely can find everything perfect and just adore and fangirl and get crazy. And then there's another part where it's just like, it's not that the thing sucks, it's just that it's almost like I have an itch. Like, you know when you have an itch and then you scratch yourself but you can't quite reach that itch? That's how I feel a lot of times for books. It's kind of like, or anything really in general, it's like, oh, you guys were so close to itching that itch and you guys just couldn't get there. For Charming as a Verb, I thought this book looked really cute. Basically, this book is about this guy named Henri. He is a trusty dog walker in New York. Overall, this charming guy. He is working hard to attend Columbia University. The only person immune to his charms is Corey Troy, who he ends up working with. So it's, you know, your classic enemies to lovers. And I used to love that trope, but I kind of have not liked it as much anymore. But honestly, this book was so cute. So when I first started reading this, because I brought it on a trip, whenever I tried to read it, I just couldn't get into it. First of all, it's a male point of view, and don't get me wrong, I don't mind male point of views, but some of the things happening just felt, I was like, I'm not sure I'm quite feeling this. And then during the trip, after I was like, okay, I'm not going to force myself to read it, because I do feel like sometimes I force myself to read stuff because there's kind of this pressure to read. And I'm just like, okay, I'm just going to enjoy the trip. And then one day while on the trip, when we were driving to a beach a bit further than where we were staying, I had this in my bag. I brought it with me to read, and I just started reading it in the car, and I was enthralled in the story. So I started to get really into the story and really liked it. I'm kind of upset because I don't like choices teenagers in books make. I know I'm a teenager, and maybe it's just because I'm a more mature person, but I don't like the mistakes they make. And I'm not hitting the book, just when I put my fingers across it gets turned off. But these characters make so much mistakes, and it's just like, please, it's just, please, why? And it makes it hard, and that's an issue with Legendborn too. I do think that for me, for some reason, it's really hard reading YA, and that's why I've kind of been moving out and trying to read more adults, literature, and magical realism. But part of me also still loves that YA because it is interesting. And one thing I realized is that these are forms of entertainment. So when I am feeling my stomach hurt because it's like the secondhand embarrassment that I did not want to experience, or I'm like, oh, I can't look at the next page, that is actually probably a good sign, because that means I'm entertained, that means I'm interested, which is better than being completely bored a whole book. So yes, my favorite part of this book is probably like the last 2 pages. Like the epilogue was so cute. I'm mad at Henri. He made some weird choices. Like, okay, not a lot. Choice he made it just like, why? I can obviously tell what's about to happen. I think it's interesting when you are the reader, because especially as someone who experiences anxiety, he doesn't have anxiety, but just some of the choices he made were out of anxiousness or worry, or just like when you see that third person view, or like you can see, hey, don't do this. And it's just like, it kind of hurts, but it's just adorable. I feel like this is less of a romance book, but more of like a coming of age story. And once I saw it in that lens, I was like, oh, I like this. I think that it honestly feels like a teen coming of age movie. Like if this was an indie teen coming of age movie, I think it should really be made into a movie with a cute, you know, background music, because it's adorable. And look at the cover. You can't really see in the light. They are just so cute with the little dog and the artwork. So I personally think it is absolutely adorable, and I'm really glad that I read it again and picked it up, and I didn't force myself to read it, because if I did force myself to read it when I wasn't in the mood to, I might not have enjoyed it as much as I have enjoyed it. So it's really important, like, don't force yourself to read books. Honestly, I love it. It's adorable, and I think I really like these kind of almost coming of age, soft, sweet romance books that are just fun, and sometimes they take you for a wild ride, and it's like, why did you make that choice? But then you kind of see that is a part of life, it is a part of being a teenager, it is a part of being a human in general. We make a lot of mistakes, and I think that when you're reading it, you feel like, why? But when you are the person, I can see how you can make those mistakes. Anyways, this is like 5 out of 5 stars for me. This isn't even a review video, but I did give this 5 out of 5 stars because it was an overall enjoyable, wholesome, pretty wholesome read, and I like that whole coming of age feel over super heavy romance, but kind of showing both sides. I really like that instead of just romance. I think it's cool to have a coming of age. Next we're on to Legendborn. First, look at how thick. Okay, I'm gonna be honest. I had been wanting to read Legendborn for a long time. And when I started reading it in February, I couldn't. I just couldn't. I felt almost sad because I was trying so hard to get into the story, just wanted to so badly, because it was like everything I probably ever wanted from a fantasy book. First, like, look at the gorgeous cover. Like, once you see the cover, you know, like, this is, you're like, oh, I want this so bad. When I saw that cover, I knew this is a book I'd want to read. I just knew it. Like, it just looked like a book I would be interested in. I started this in February. The first issue is this book. Oh, let me tell you, I love this book. I'm just sharing what happened when I went into it. This is a big book, and I love big books. I really love big books, but I don't like small fonts. So when I first tried to read this, I'm thinking, how? I'm thinking, how am I gonna read all these little letters? I don't know what made it hard, but for some reason little letters are hard for me. And there's like no large print version of this book. But anyways, I wasn't feeling it. besides just how big it was. I was struggling with the story because basically, if you guys don't know what Legendborn is this kind of urban fantasy almost about a girl that deals with magic. She's at a college. This is a horrible description that doesn't really make any sense, but she discovers the secret society of Legendborns, and basically my biggest issue was that it was kind of this very I'm the only black girl type of situation happening in a book. And don't get me wrong, like, it's not because I couldn't relate. I can fully relate to that trope, like, I am the only black girl where I live trope, sort of. Well, not the only, but literally predominantly white area trope, so I understand, sort of. I was kind of tired because it seems like there are a lot of books now that have that trope over and over again. And for me as a writer, I write fantasy when I've written in books because I wanted a form of escapism and not another reminder of, oh, everyone's so racist to me. I like to write books that have like lots of black girls, lots of black people, lots of black, brown, just minorities, and I kind of feel like it's more of a colorblind world. So colorblind isn't, I still like to address, especially in my contemporaries, but for fantasy I kind of wanted to create a realm of escapism. And I at first was really happy to find that representation, to feel like, oh, I'm not alone. But then part of it got tiring to constantly read about racism within books. There were other books I had read that kind of let go of that. And don't get me wrong, I kind of like that in the book, but not so much of the main focus.
One quick thing I wanted to add to continue this conversation is that it's not just racism in books, it's how the black experience in general is written. Not particularly for Legendborn, but for a lot of YA books I've noticed that are usually published by big publishers. I've noticed that the black experience in general is written more in a way for white audiences than black audiences. A lot of things that can be written in a more subtle way are written more in a racism bad, or because I'm black, used in a phrase I'd already understand as a black person without them saying this blank because I'm black. Now this just might be a personal experience, but I feel like I've noticed this a lot in some of these recent YA releases, especially those published by big publishers and those that are promoted a lot. And I don't know if that's because they think that only white people read their books and they need to make it clear, because I know there's tons and tons of black YA readers, but this is just something I've noticed.
So I really wanted this to be like, you know, similar to the fantasies I write that are more like, oh, it's this black magical girl, it's this black society, or just people in general where there's not really a huge focus on racism. So I was struggling with getting into it. And second or third, I've been going on and on. Bree, the main character, was annoying to me at first. I hate to say it, but she was a little bit annoying to me. And that might just be a me thing because I tend to get annoyed by characters, and I think she sounds like me as a young person, and the characters I wrote in my book sounded like her. Literally, they have the same kind of voice and way they talk and deal with stuff, so I think that it was kind of like, like, I didn't mean to completely fall into my pillow, but it just felt like, oh, she sounds like my characters. Anyways, I'm rambling, it doesn't make sense what I'm saying, but I couldn't read it. I just couldn't get into it. I was busy, I was stressed. There was a lot going on in that time period, like always, so I kind of just didn't get around to reading it.
Another thing I wanted to add was that there was a lot of info dumping at the beginning. So as someone who really likes prose more than like info dumping and like very descriptive, I wasn't a huge fan of the writing style initially, but once I started to kind of understand the story and the plot, I felt really engaged.
Skip forward a few months. Suddenly, somehow, I'm getting into this book. Now, I'll share a few things. Outside of all the things that I noted, that's kind of like a small part of it, but in general, I had been for these past few years, especially in high school, been like not struggling with my reading, quote unquote struggling, because I was still reading a lot. I just wasn't reading as fast or as quick. And to me, I felt that, oh, I'm in a reading slump. But I realized now that that was never really a reading slump. That was just me having unrealistic expectations and ideals when it comes to how many books I'm reading or how much I'm reading. So I never was really doing anything wrong or reading the wrong way. I just completely misinterpreted a normal experience. And I was honestly already reading a good amount for a normal teenager who also has assigned reading and other assignments. But yes, so back to Legendborn. One thing that I did to help me read books was I started listening to audiobooks while I read. And that is how I started reading Legendborn. And honestly, for Legendborn, I just took it slow. It is a long book, there are a lot of words, and usually the 500-page books I read, because this is like 500 pages or 490, they don't have such small words. So it's kind of like there's a bunch, the book is honestly in half would be, if the letters were smaller, the book would be in half. It would be, I don't know, oh, it would be like 200 pages. So, or like 250 pages. But since this actually would be like 700 pages or just a lot longer if it actually had a bigger font, was what made it a little bit challenging. So I just took it slow and really got into the story. Legendborn would have been perfect if I was 13. And while there were a lot of issues I had with it and it wasn't like what I would write, the 13-year-old in me, this side of me adored it. And even though I'm kind of over the love triangle trope, I'm kind of over the enemies to lovers, I'm kind of over all those different tropes that were used in it, Tracy I just loved how she wrote it. And using the audiobook and listening and reading, I just was addicted after some point and just couldn't wait to finish it and just ramble about it, because it was honestly such an enjoyable read after I got into it. And it was entertaining too, which I forget books are supposed to be entertaining, which is something I often forget. I was literally obsessed with it. So Bree, even though at first she was a little bit annoying for me, in the end I ended up kind of really liking her. I feel like she's one of those characters where she's annoying, but she's still a great main character and relatable too. Even though I wish there were more Black people or people of color at the school in general, I still think it was done pretty well. Well, I personally wouldn't write a story where the whole magic system and magic world kind of doesn't have a lot of Black people in the main Legendborn society she was in, because I don't want to spoil everything. I still think that it was written well and it was relatable and it was a great book. I think what I also like about this is that it reminds me of books I wrote, because Selwyn literally sounds like every male original character I would write. Literally everyone, just this brooding male character. And at first I was like, ugh, why? And then I was like, okay, I kind of like Selwyn. But at first I was like, oh, this is just every trope. But you know, honestly, sometimes tropes are fun. Like, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. And I honestly am happy to just see a book with things I used to like as a kid in books, but there's just a Black girl this time. Anyways, I love Legendborn and I'm really excited for Bloodmarked. I really want to win the Goodreads Bloodmarked giveaway now because I need to know what happens. I want to own Bloodmarked. I love Bloodmarked already. I love Legendborn. It's just gorgeous. Oh, and one thing too. So the book talks about slavery, which again, that's what I meant. I try to write subtly, but not really talk about, I don't really talk about slavery in my own writing, and I prefer to not read books that deal with slavery unless they're like historical or assigned. But I think once I realized what she was doing, she understood her own assignment. Sometimes I feel like when reading, I give the author the assignment of what I want them to write, but I realized that sometimes this is their assignment, they understood their own assignment. I loved the way she tied in magic with colonization with magic and showed slavery. Like, it was just gorgeous. It was just gorgeous in my opinion. It was gorgeous and vivid and a lovely way that she wrote it. I just loved it. Okay, I didn't love everything about it, but I did love everything about it. It's just, I think that the book is gorgeous. Like, I keep saying gorgeous, but I just love the book. I love the cover. It's beautiful. It just was a really awesome book. And I feel like this book is especially really good for teenagers, like younger teenagers. Like, if I was 12 or 13 and read this, or 14, at any of those ages when I was a huge, even bigger than I am now, bookworm, I wish I had this book. Like, this is the book literally for me as a kid, because it just was really awesome, and I'm really excited. And the magic was super cool, the fighting was really cool, the training, the battle scenes, the creatures, everything was really cool, and it all came together. Anyways, long story short, with both of these books, at first I couldn't get into them at all. I couldn't from the first page fall in love. But then I was like, okay, don't force reading it. And then I read it like a few months later and I'm in love. I'm jaw dropped. It's giving everything. Like at first it's like, it's not really giving. It's giving everything after I wait a few months. So that is the end of my recent reads list. And now we're gonna move on to currently reading and want to read. So first we have Pet. I love Pet. I haven't even finished reading it and I absolutely adore it. It's kind of everything I've been looking for within YA fiction, within books and literature in general. Because like I said, I'm kind of growing out, not growing out because of a certain age, just mentally, me personally, I'm kind of not so much into your typical YA story, whether it's fantasy, whether it's contemporary, because I noticed they kind of all follow this similar model. And I know, like, yes, the authors have their own unique twist, we have the characters, but in general, no matter what the trope is, it feels predictable. And I've recently really been trying to get into surrealist literature, to magical realism, just all of that to inspire me while writing. And Pet just felt like that book. Like, Pet just felt like that. I literally am only 12 pages in. So, funny story. So my mom actually picked out Pet for me, and I'm like, oh yay, because this library she visited was giving out books, blah blah. I love when libraries give out free books during the summer. They should give out books all year long for free that you can keep forever. Anyways, my mom picked out Pet and I was like, yay! Because I've been wanting to read Pet for so long, but I kind of forgot about it. I just forget about stuff, but then I get obsessed. The way it's written, it just feels so different from what I usually see. YA middle grade, I'm not quite sure the age range. And I love how it's short. Because to be honest, I don't have as much time to read anymore as I used to. And while I've been learning, like, hey, you don't have to sit down for hours and read a book straight through. You can take time throughout the day to read the book. I still really like the idea of this short book, and I'm really excited to continue reading this. But yeah, I was thinking, oh, I'll read this in a day. My biggest issue is thinking I can read something in a day and being like, yeah, I'm gonna read this, and then completely forgetting about the book and then staring at it and thinking, I really want to read this, because it's not like I don't want to read it. I want to read it. I just can't make my brain give myself the time for it. But I hope maybe this month, it's July 29th, maybe I can try to finish it before August. I'm not sure, but I would love to do that. Next, another currently reading book, which has that similar fate where it's like, I started it, fell in love with the book, got 12 pages in, and was like, I'm gonna finish this in a day because I absolutely love it. Like, I'm gonna finish it right now. First of all, another gorgeous cover. Look at the art. She is so pretty. He is okay. They just both look really gorgeous. Like, I love the art style so much. I love her braids. Like, everything about this cover is just so cute. And the pink. Love pink covers. Love when you have the purple and the pink. These books look cute together because they have the purple. I love this book. I love everything about this book, and I haven't even finished reading it, but I already know I love it. Even look at the back. It's just this really cute, like, it's just adorable. Look in here. It's just cute. Okay, guys, I love this book. I'm already loving this book. Even though I need to finish reading it. I will get to reading it, finishing it. It's just really cute, adorable romance. Why, again, a black book. The main character, I love her. I love her because, like I said, I'm usually annoyed by main characters. I don't know why, I just get annoyed very easily by them. But she is not. She is super relatable. She likes a lot of things, like analyze. Like, she was like talking about thumbs. I'm like, oh my gosh, this sounds like something I would say. This sounds like something I would say. I love her already. I love her already. I'm so not in that I haven't even got to his part yet, but I know I'm going to like this book. I know I'm going to. I already love the writing style. Everything about this is just adorable. It's cute. The font is a nice size. I can't wait to finish reading this. Now onto the to be read list. That was a bad idea. So my to be read list, This is my to be read list. I have more books in my to be read list on Goodreads and more on my shelves, but these are books that I've recently and probably should read and I've wanted to read and I've been putting off. And one of my biggest flaws and why I never really finish books is because I start too many at the same time. And sometimes that works for me because I can alternate between, but sometimes it's just like, no, you just need to focus on one or my brain is going to completely go mad and forget what to do, and I just think it's a bad idea. So the first book is Salt to the Sea. And this is a book that is a part of a book club at my library, so I wanted to read this because I would love to be a part of the book club discussion. And basically, it's historical fiction about 4 refugees and 4 secrets, and it's the forgotten tragedy that was 6 times deadlier than the Titanic. So I'm really excited to read this and hopefully for the book club. On to the next book. So this is actually an arc. Basically, it's called How to Survive Your Murder, which sounds cool because I like murder mysteries and stuff. And basically this is kind of inspired by your slasher movies, which is cool, like Scream and stuff. So I thought, oh, that sounds really cool because slasher movies are cool. It's another book I haven't quite gotten to read yet. I started it. I didn't really like the start because it was the girl's sister's point of view. Basically, her sister gets killed, but the cover looks really cool. The cat ears are giving 2016 a little bit, but actually that would be cool if it is kind of set in like 2016 era. But I like the cover, and I really like when books they have like blood spots in them. Like, that is cool. That is super cool to me. It looks cool. I really think that like those YA thriller, murder mystery, horror books are really cool. The next book is this graphic novel called Squire that I've been wanting to read, and it looks really cool. So one thing about me is that I love thick graphic novels. Graphic novels are cool. As an artist or someone who enjoys art and looking at art, graphic novels just inspire me. Like, I just love graphic novels. I love unique art styles in graphic novels. So I'm really excited to read this. It's this really cool fantasy. There is a lot of brown, so when I see a lot of brown characters, I get happy. So like, it just looks cool. Look at that. Like, that is gorgeous. I really like this art style. I really like the colors. It has some panels where it's like there's just a lot of cool colors, and then we get the warmth, and I just think it's gorgeous how it is done, and I love how it's thick. That means there's so much art to look at, which is awesome. So much art to look at is gonna be super fun. Next is The Gilded Ones. So I am really, really, really excited for that, and I feel like I've been yelling this whole time, so I'm gonna like sound a bit softer now. I've really been wanting to read this for super long. I actually got this from my library last year, I think. When did this come out? Yeah, I got this last year from the library. Reserved it, you know, like a hold, and got it, and I didn't even get a really chance to start it. It was just on my shelf for a while, and then actually the library, since I volunteered at the summer reading, I got to pick out a book. I love when libraries give away books that you can keep, because sometimes it's hard for the library because I don't get into a book until it's time to return it. So I like having books to keep into. I love buying books. But yeah, this first little cover, gorgeous. If you don't know me, I love gorgeous covers. Literally any cover, if it's pretty, I'm going to like the book. And this is this really cool fantasy warrior book. So I'm really excited to read this sometime soon. And it's like really interesting, and there's like this blood ceremony in this village. And it just sounds incredible, so I'm really excited to read that. There's this book called Queen of the Tiles, and I got this from my library, and I just think the cover is gorgeous. I say this about every book, and it's true. I love how this cover looks. There's all these tiles on it, which is cool. I just like when games or a really interesting, unique hobby is a part of a book. On to my last stack. I have a little haul, just a tiny haul, that I thought I would share. So 3 of these books are what I got from my library's bookstore, and another is what I got from my like actual library that I'm not keeping. So first is The Metaphors We Live In. Basically, it's this book about language and mind and how it affects us as people. I just think it's really interesting to study about that. So I've been trying to add more nonfiction into my books. I've been reading books about like feminism, I've been reading books about colonization and all sorts of things. So I think that slowly adding that in, because it would also be cool to kind of quote things from books and continue to learn more. So I'm excited to read this one. Next, I have 2 Sappho poetry collections. I used to enjoy reading Sappho's poetry, so I got some books. So this is the Poems and Fragments of Sappho, because a lot of her poems were burnt, sadly. And then this is the complete poems of Sappho, which is cool. So those are all of my library book hauls. And let's see what I got from the library bookstore. So the first is A Raisin in the Sun, which is a play I read a bit of when I can't remember, but I was assigned to read and I enjoyed it. So I just got this from the bookstore because they were closing and had a sale, and I thought it would be really cool to own my own little copy. I feel like this is just a really nice sized book because you can put it in a bag and take it to go to read. And I just thought the cover looked cool. I just thought this looked like a really cool little book version of it, and it was really cheap. So I got it. The next is Night, a new translation. And the cover just looks really interesting. My mom read some of this book to me and my siblings because she has one edition, and I thought, oh, I would love to read this, more about this. So I got it. And then there's this really cool graphic novel called Motor Crush. She just looks so cool. I love the art style. There's even like these sketches, almost like fashion illustrations of her, so I thought that was super cool. But yeah, like I said, I like graphic novels. I think they're really cool. They inspire me, and the art style looks really cool, and it's like about racing or something. So I thought, cool. Hey guys, thank you for listening to me talk about books, ramble about books for a long time. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. Bye for now.